On their first date, the playboy noticed that the beautiful woman was acting a bit unusual. As an experienced player, he keenly caught on to this and immediately pointed out that she was too nervous. Just as he thought he had gained the upper hand, she directly asked if he just wanted to get intimate and sleep with her. He tried to cover it up with sweet talk, but she completely exposed his hypocrisy. This was the first time he had encountered such a direct approach. Furthermore, her first impression of him wasn't very good. Previously, when she went to the hospital for a checkup, she told the doctor about a strange lump on her breast. At that time, Jamie the playboy was standing right there, staring intently at her. He had posed as a medical intern at the hospital, but in reality, he was just a pharmaceutical sales representative peddling drugs. However, his true identity was quickly exposed by her as soon as they left the room. Jamie immediately offered a sincere apology, admitting he shouldn't have peeked at her chest. He then used the opportunity to strike up a conversation, asking for her name and playfully inviting her out for coffee. She turned around stylishly and flipped him off. This complete rejection fully ignited his competitive spirit. Having navigated the dating scene for years, Jamie was extremely confident in his pickup skills and personal charm. From elderly women to young girls, and even the hospital nurses, he could charm them all. Yet, this woman was completely immune to his usual tricks. Undeterred, Jamie managed to get her name and phone number from a nurse. Fortunately, Jamie was handsome enough that Maggie didn't get angry and actually agreed to meet him. While they were chatting at the coffee shop, Maggie's hands trembled uncontrollably. Faced with Jamie's flirtatious behavior, she didn't object, but instead countered with a direct question. They hit it off instantly, and things quickly got wild back at her apartment. However, right after they finished, she kicked him out. With a tacit understanding, they established a purely physical relationship. From then on, Jamie was always at her beck and call. No matter where he was, a single phone call from Maggie would send him rushing to her side. They quickly became adventurous, hooking up in various places, even sneaking into restrooms during work hours. I highly recommend watching the original film to see the scenes that cannot be shown here. Over time, Jamie noticed something unique about Maggie. While most women would want to define the relationship after sleeping together, she was entirely different. She seemed solely interested in physical pleasure and had no desire for a real romance. This was exactly the kind of arrangement a player like Jamie wanted. They set ground rules to keep things strictly physical with no emotional strings attached. However, their frequent encounters eventually caused trouble. A man driving a luxury car unexpectedly punched Jamie in the face. It turned out to be Maggie's ex-boyfriend Trey, who was also a top-tier pharmaceutical representative. Jamie caught him off guard and threw a punch back, but since the guy was a military veteran, Jamie ended up hurting his own hand. Before leaving, the man warned Jamie to stay away from Maggie. The next day, Jamie went to see her. Maggie frankly confessed that she had Parkinson's disease, which made it impossible for her to commit to a normal romantic relationship. She just wanted to enjoy physical pleasure while she still could. During their intimacy, Jamie struggled to perform. Knowing men all too well, Maggie easily pointed out the harsh truth. Clearly, after finding out about her past with Trey, Jamie was overly anxious to prove he was the better man. They ended up sitting on the couch and talking through the night, which brought them much closer. However, by the next morning, Maggie got cold feet. She was terrified of settling into a committed relationship and even more afraid of actually falling in love with him. As a result, she rejected his invitation. Initially, Jamie brushed it off, assuming it was just another casual fling and that he would forget her in no time. He thought he could just go back to his bachelor lifestyle, effortlessly drifting from one woman to the next. The problem was that he couldn't get her out of his head. Eventually, he couldn't resist calling her, but she remained resolute and refused to see him regardless of what he said. The moment those words left his mouth, Maggie realized things had gone too far, and that he might actually be falling for her. Panicking, she abruptly hung up. The following day, Jamie went to look for her again, only to find out she was heading to Canada for work. Hoping he would just give up, she intentionally kept her return time vague. To her surprise, Jamie waited outside for her all night. When she returned early the next morning and saw a sleep-deprived Jamie standing there, her forced composure finally shattered. Letting go of her fears, Maggie fell deeply in love with him. Their mutual devotion became a source of healing for both of them. With her by his side, Jamie shed his reckless habits, and his career finally began to take off. At the same time, the pharmaceutical company he worked for was developing a groundbreaking new drug destined to make history. Utilizing his exceptional charm, Jamie secured the distribution rights for the new drug. Just as expected, Viagra became a massive market sensation immediately after its release. Despite his booming career, Jamie would constantly exaggerate his successes whenever he spoke with his family. Maggie disliked these little lies, but she soon understood that they stemmed from his deep-seated insecurities. He came from a family of high achievers in medicine, His father was a professor, and his mother and sister were doctors. Even his younger brother had a lucrative and stable career. Jamie was the only one who had dropped out of school and was viewed as the family disappointment, which made him desperate for their validation. To help him, Maggie asked him to name 4 of his own strengths. Surprisingly, this simple question left him completely speechless. He honestly couldn't think of any traits he possessed that could be considered virtues. He stammered, looking as helpless and lost as a child. Maggie's reassuring words profoundly healed him, just as his presence had cured her of her fears. In that moment, they truly became each other's medicine. Following his professional success, Jamie, who was already popular with women, became even more sought after. Despite women constantly throwing themselves at him, he did something unprecedented and rejected all their advances. Right after a party, he rushed straight back to her apartment. He had something important to tell her, but as the words reached his lips, his heart pounded so hard that he tried several times without being able to speak. It was the first time he had ever said these 3 words, something he hadn't even told his own family. He looked incredibly vulnerable, as if confessing his love meant baring his absolute weakest side to her. To his surprise, this raw honesty resonated deeply with Maggie, and their emotional walls came down, bringing their hearts even closer. Just as things were perfect, her insecurities resurfaced. One day, after running out of her medication, she got blackout drunk to hide her physical tremors. Jamie quickly noticed something was wrong. When he gently asked about her condition, she completely lost control of her emotions. Deep down, she felt that his love was just pity, and subconsciously believed she wasn't good enough for him. She lashed out with the most hurtful words to push him away, causing him to angrily slam the door and walk out. But moments later, she broke down crying on the floor over a shattered glass. Hearing her sobs, Jamie realized that her cruel words and coldness were merely defense mechanisms. She was pushing him away just to test if his love was real. He immediately walked back inside and wrapped her in a tight embrace, giving her exactly the kind of unconditional love she needed most. To help ease her anxiety, Jamie took her to a medical gala in Chicago. There, she met a fellow Parkinson's patient who recommended a local support group. Surrounded by a large community of people sharing their struggles and daily lives with the disease, Maggie finally felt like she wasn't alone. The overwhelming anxiety and self-doubt she had harbored for so long slowly began to melt away in the warmth of shared understanding. Meanwhile, Jamie struck up a conversation with another patient's husband, hoping to learn how to handle the situation. The man's brutally honest advice, however, caught him completely off guard. He confessed that he, too, used to believe love could conquer anything. But as his wife's condition continuously deteriorated, his patience had slowly worn thin. Parkinson's is a lifelong battle, and eventually, the patient loses all ability to care for themselves. Hearing this harsh reality deeply terrified Jamie. Leaving the meeting, Maggie was immensely grateful that she had come to Chicago with him. She also took the opportunity to apologize for the vicious thing she had said earlier. However, she failed to notice the awkwardness hidden behind Jamie's smile. That night, he secretly researched Parkinson's disease, consulted doctor friends, and exhausted all his medical connections in a desperate attempt to find a cure. His frantic, relentless searching slowly began to wear down Maggie's patience. While Jamie claimed he was just looking out for her health, his actions showed that he actually wanted to back out. Seeing his hesitation, she took the initiative to break up with him. She told him that he was a far better man than he gave himself credit for. He tried to argue, but his expression had already betrayed his true feelings. Just like that, they parted ways. Afterwards, Jamie threw himself into his work, but he could never reclaim his former passion. Meanwhile, Maggie was trapped in her memories, gazing at their old photos every day. He tried to reconcile countless times, only to be met with a cold dial tone. As time passed, they slowly grew accustomed to living without each other. One day, Jamie received a major promotion and a raise. While out celebrating at an upscale restaurant with his colleagues, he unexpectedly bumped into Maggie. She was accompanied by a strange man, clearly signaling that she had moved on. They exchanged polite, distant greetings, yet their hesitant expressions betrayed the lingering feelings they both tried to hide. Upon hearing that he was moving to Chicago, she became even more resolute in her decision. No matter how much it broke her heart, she refused to become a burden on his future. While packing up his luggage to leave the city, Jamie stumbled upon a camcorder she had left behind. Pressing play, he watched their past memories surface, showing the two of them, excitedly planning their future together. Staring at her loving eyes, he finally realized what this girl meant to him. He bolted to the coffee shop where she worked, only to find out she was on her way to Canada again. Without a second thought, he raced after her and managed to intercept the bus. At first, she refused to listen to him, but thanks to some urging from an elderly passenger seated behind her, she finally agreed to give him 5 minutes. After everything, Jamie finally understood exactly what made her so incredibly special. He confirmed that he couldn't live without her, and he believed she felt the exact same way. Though she refused to admit it aloud, tears were already rolling in her eyes. She cried that she would only need him more and more, that it wasn't fair to him, and that she would leave him one step ahead. Jamie responded that when that time came, he would be right there to see her off. He told her that somewhere in a parallel universe, there might be a perfect, healthy version of themselves who only ever had to worry about their vacation budget. But he didn't want to be that kind of person. After that, Jamie turned down the high-paying job offer in Chicago and decided to stay to apply for medical school. In this vast world, many people drift through life for decades without ever meeting someone who truly touches their soul. But once they meet that destined person, their entire life undergoes an earth-shattering change. Love and Other Drugs is a 2010 film directed by Edward Zwick, adapted from pharmaceutical representative Jamie Rady's personal memoir, Hard Sell: The Evolution of a Viagra Salesman. Jake Gyllenhaal earned a Golden Globe nomination for his performance, while Anne Hathaway spent extensive time studying the real experiences of Parkinson's patients for her role, securing final cut rights for all intimate scenes on set. Because of Hathaway's boundary-breaking performance, many viewers mistakenly remember the film as merely a provocative movie to watch secretly in bed. In reality, it is a film perfectly suited for couples to watch together. It captures the extreme push and pull of adult relationships, highlighting the repeated pushing away and constant testing. Everyone uses something to disguise themselves, pretending to be heartless, free-spirited, or unbothered. Even when they were both deeply moved, Maggie forced herself to stay calm and laid down conditions. He couldn't move in, couldn't meet her friends, and couldn't introduce her to his parents. While it sounded like drawing boundaries, she was actually begging him not to get too close, knowing that if he did, she wouldn't have the strength to push him away. It wasn't that she didn't want to be loved. She was simply terrified of it, because she clearly knew what the person who loved her would ultimately have to endure. Her rejection wasn't because she didn't love him, but because she loved him too much to drag him down with her. Spoken out loud, this kind of love is consideration, but hidden in the heart, it is a loneliness that seeps deep into the bone marrow. Have you ever felt like such a burden that you desperately push people away, all while silently praying they don't actually leave? When they reached the crossroads of love, Maggie's voice came from the machine, her eyes full of light, saying she was really truly happy in that moment. With just that one sentence, Jamie understood what he had lost. It wasn't just a relationship, nor was it just a woman. He had lost the only person who affirmed and recognized him, the one who told him he was already good enough. Before that, he had always used a competitive drive to motivate himself, which woman he had chased, what kind of scores he got, or which opponent he had beaten. He had never considered that a person didn't need to rely on winning or losing to gain approval. The hardest thing in this world is nothing more than one person completely and genuinely accepting another from the bottom of their heart. And the most luxurious part of love isn't about how good the other person is. It's that for the first time, they make you feel that simply being the way you are is enough. That is why he caught up and said those words. He had never met anyone who believed he had done well enough until he met her. What this movie ultimately wants to say is actually very simple. True love isn't about finding a person without problems. It's finding someone whose problems you are willing to face with them, and who is also willing to face your problems with you. Alright, today's recap ends here. If you like it, remember to follow, like, and comment. That's all. See you next time.